All right, doing it again. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to another episode of the Financial Life Podcast. I'm your ridiculously handsome host, at least is what I tell myself when I wake up in the morning, Matt Dillingham. I have a very special guest, another special guest. All my guests are special, but this one's special in a different way because they're not originally from here. They're an immigrant from England, the UK, that part of the country or the world that our country kind of came from, fought against. Now we're like, we're best friends. Hey, that type of stuff, right? So before we get into that, I introduce them. Some of you know these things. I do some stuff. I help people out with educating on credit, business funding, one-on-one coaching, all their stuff. If you like help with any one of those, go to speakwithmatt.info again, speakwithmatt.info. That'll take you right to my calendar. Book a cool 30-minute call. We'll talk. With that being said, let's get into it. Robert, I appreciate you for being on today and taking the time. How are you, sir? And tell the people who you are and all that fun stuff. Because, like I said, you're not from here, from England. The country that was once a world power, and here we are now in the United States. But hey, things happen. So yeah,
Life changes, my friend.
yeah.
Life changes. Well, firstly, Matt, thank you very much. Appreciate it to meet you and all your listeners out there. So, yes, I'm originally from the England. I have lived in Europe for multiple years as well, and so I've had a lot of different experiences working with multicultural and true multicultural. I actually managed a team once. We a team of 14 people, and we had over 22 languages spoken in the team.
Wow.
So lots of different types of people, and it's always fun, you know, when you're the manager and everyone assumes that you can't speak hardly any languages and they find languages that you don't know, so they can talk about you, but
Ah,
eventually you pick it up.
right.
It's all good. But yeah,
Yes.
so I'm a business coach and I actually help people think about their exit. Doesn't mean you
Right.
want to exit right now. It doesn't mean you want to retire. What I like to help people do is when you start your business off, you have a great product or service that you want to bring to the world and you want to sell that. And we tend to forget about one thing: yourself. What do you want to get out of this? We know we
Right.
want to sell this or bring this product out to people, but what do you want to get out of it? And it's not just your salary. What's going to happen when you finish with this company? Do you want to buy another company? Do you want to add to this company? Do you want to pass this on to your children? What is it you want to do? So I help you rethink that so you can set your goals more effectively, and then you're able to build that equity and wealth for you and your family to move forward with, and help you build generational wealth. And so we sort of cross over a little bit in
Mm.
ways. I don't do any real financial planning or financial advisement. I leave that for professionals like yourself. But I help them think about how to grow your company going up. And
Right.
so one of the simple things I help people do is raise your prices. It's such a misnomer. Everyone thinks they have to discount all the time, but the simple thing you can do is raise your prices, and you'll be surprised how easy that is.
Mhm.
And secondly, how acceptive of that your clients are. So
Really.
those customers out there, they don't always reject too badly on prices being raised. Now, if you're going to double your prices, that's a different conversation. But, small rises of 10, 15% can actually help you walk away with 30, 40% more increased net profit, and which is great because you can put that back into your company to grow your company further, or you can put some of that back in your pocket and grow your own personal wealth.
Right. Okay. So okay. So interesting. So even like right now with global inflation, that's still something like I mean it happens, prices go up anyway, but you that's still in your perspective, raising the price is still like a good thing.
Yes,
A
and the whole
modest
thing is,
amount. Mm,
yeah, it's about doing it effectively
yeah.
and in smaller increments. There's a principle I talk about, which is when you start looking at just doing small changes across multiple areas and you do compounding, in other words, one thing interacts with the other. So if you talk about, I'm going to increase my outreach to potential clients by 3%,
Yeah.
how much that will have a compounding impact going through your conversion rate to your revenue. That will affect your gross margin. That'll affect changes into your operational expenses and down to your net margin. Now, the thing is, if I change each of those by 3%, I'll up, increase it, for example, increase revenue by 3%, reduce my gross cost of goods sold down by 3%. That all compounds on each other. And what you end up having is a bigger swing. on your success. A lot of people try to do massive jumps,
Uh-huh.
but if you do lots of small changes all at the same time, what happens is you get better results. And because it compounds. So the simple way to
Right.
ask people about it is if you had 1 penny today, 1 cent, so a penny, England, cent, US, I got to remember those things.
That's right.
Uh, and you doubled that every single day, by the time you got to the end of the month, which is 31 days out, you would have about $5 million. That is the power of compounding.
Right.
And so that is what we're talking about when I help coach businesses to move forward is how can we make small changes across multiple different areas that you end up having a large change underlying to help your company be more successful.
Right. Interesting. I've never heard that. And of making the small changes in the way you explain it and how you change that, and then it compounds and it just takes off. Or you have a, what do I want to say? It's better. It's more effective than trying to go from 0 to 100 like that. It's like do this first, and you'll get there much more effectively, better, and you make more profit.
Yeah.
And you make a good point about the exit plan that no one thinks about that, and that's something I've never heard. I think you're the only person the only person I've come across that talks about, okay, well, what do you want to do after you're finished? I know you started, but like, what's the plan at the end? And no one talks about that. If anything, I've heard there's business brokers that sell businesses, but the end of it all, it's like at some point you're not going to do this forever. And then and
No.
also the thing you said was yourself. It's like I think we're thinking about ourselves, but not to the extent of, well, what I want out of this when I'm finished.
Mm-hmm.
And that question, I think thinking about it now is kind of scary for people. It's like, I'm not gonna do this forever. No, you're not. And it's like, well, shit. Well, I guess I'll just won't deal with it until it comes up. And you're like, it's same thing with life insurance. It's an important topic that no one wants to talk about because it's like this happens when you pass away. Nah, we'll talk about this tomorrow, another day, whatever. It's fine. I'm healthy. And I'm like, no, no, no. We got to discuss now. Like, what do you stand? And I mean, even that changed, but it's a good point that you mentioned here.
Yeah, and it is important to have those conversations and to think about it because the whole thing is everyone has these bright ideas, and sometimes what happens, and for me, having traveled around the world and met lots of different people,
Mm,
and you talk about what oppression really is, or how people are set in a belief block that they're only allowed to do so much.
yeah.
So, for example, it's a very big thing here in the US about going to college. It became a very big thing in Europe for a while because college was free, but now they're making them pay for it. But there was a whole thing about, oh, you're nothing unless you have a college degree.
Oh wow.
But the thing is, there's a lot of people out there who don't have college degrees that do far better and far more intelligent.
Oh
Intelligence
yeah.
has got nothing to do with it. Yes, if you've got good intelligence, you've got a better chance of getting a PhD. Great. But it doesn't mean that only people with PhDs have high intelligence. And I know you served in the military. I served in the military. I left school when I was 16. I went straight into the British Army as a 16-year-old, classified as a child soldier. And the whole thing, I never had a degree to start with. I ended up with a junior degree, and then it's called a junior degree over here. And then after I left the military, I went and done my bachelor's in computer science and then my master's in advanced manufacturing. So I didn't have a degree until I was in my late 20s, early 30s.
Wow.
So the whole thing is, should I have been held back? Should I have been limited? Your self-limiting beliefs will be told, well, I can't do this unless I have a degree. I
Right.
remember being told for a job once, oh, we only hire people with a degree to do this. How many people have you tried doing this job and can't do it? Everyone. Let me do it.
Right.
And I went in and I did the job, and they're like, wow. I said, yeah, you don't have to have a degree. A degree helps you think things through and helps round out some of your education,
Yeah.
but it also hinders you as well sometimes because you're now in this thought process of I have to do it this way.
Right.
Whereas some people it's that unconscious incompetence piece,
Hmm.
and they just go out and they try things and it works, and then they learn from it. And there's a
Right.
lot of practical stuff out there. So a lot of people out there, as much as you want to do something, there's always something else you can do. And I do speak to some business owners who freak out because they're making, they got up that $800,000 in revenue, coming up to $1 million in revenue in the year, and they're like, I never thought I could do this. I never thought I'd be someone like me should never be able to run a business of this magnitude. And it's like, why? What's you because there's all these things. We're always campaign with these things that you must have a degree, you must do this, you must do, and
Yeah.
there are limitations that other people put on us. Society sometimes put on us that we don't need to have. You don't need to have a degree to run a business. Do you need to be educated? Yes. Do you need to learn about stuff? Yes. But it
Yes.
doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a degree. And if you
Right.
think of a price of it, I saw today there's a college charging like $96,000 a year for an undergrad degree. So that's nearly $400,000 over 4 years. Okay, I hope you have rich parents because
Jeez.
you're going to be anchored to a lot of debt very quickly. And for what? Is that, are you truly going to be get out of that debt outwards? And we see a lot of people in financial distress because they have tons of student loans.
Yeah. The student loan crisis here is insane. And yeah, so I didn't realize that the whole belief in college started in Europe and then came here to be like, you need to have college or you don't have anything. Like you're nothing. And now that's changing. People are waking up going, this is BS. I could have done some other things, other routes, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But there's still the premise in the States that like I need to go to college. College is the only way, and it's not.
Yeah.
Even my dad said this. I remember my dad said this years ago when I was like in high school, and he's a teacher, and he's like, college isn't for everybody. And he's like, it's not. We push on everybody like it's the only thing. You don't have to go. And there are people. I don't know what stat is. Well, I always want to say like I feel like people for some people that don't go, they tend to be more successful than people who went to college, and it does put you in the same mindset of thinking one way versus like being taught how to think. They're teaching you like what to think, and now
Yeah.
what's going on with schools, and it's more of like an indoctrination of like this is what it is, and they're oppressed, and it's like oh my god, like that doesn't produce a productive uh generation, society of people. It's just they're just all about activism and other things. I'm like, it's not really,
Yeah.
it's not really going to help you have the life that you want, basically, you know? Um,
No, it's not. And one of the things I'm a big fan of is trade schools.
yeah,
Because you think about it, you know, doing a 2 year school, learning a trade, and a trade could be everything, including being a computer developer,
mm,
a financial person, because it's based around the practical. You'd learn some theory, but a lot of it's day to day practical, how to work, how to work, how to work, how to work in there. And, bring back apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are great. You
yeah,
learn on the job you're doing. You go to school, you learn some components you need to learn to make sure you're rounded out, but you come off with something practical that you can do, and therefore you're able to be something and be someone. And you just have a look at the allied trades. If you look at plumbing, electricians, HVAC,
yep,
GC, you know, those are great. And there's a lot of people do those sorts of jobs.
yep.
But everyone has this thing of like looking down on you. I
Oh,
mean,
you're an
yeah, oh,
HVAC,
you
you're an
only do
electrician.
this, you only do
Oh,
that. And it's like, well, if that's your passion, do it.
yeah,
I met a lady the other week, amazing lady. She's in the mid 50s now. She left corporate world at around 50 and went and done a coiffure training. So she became a barber. And it's like really interesting. Why do you do that? Because I've always wanted to do this. I've
mm,
had a successful year. I've worked in marketing, done all these fun things, but I really wanted to be this. This is what I feel my calling is.
yeah,
And she's slowly working her way through to make herself successful and trying to get herself financially secure, but she's enjoying herself so much.
yeah,
And the whole thing is that's sometimes what we need. We hear so much about, this group is unhappy, that group of people are unhappy, this group are unhappy. Why are you unhappy? Well, I'm anchored with all this debt. Why do you have this debt? Because I went to college. Why do you go to college? Because I have to. If I don't go to college, I'm going to be a nobody. Like, no, not everyone goes to college.
yeah,
You could have been something else. Oh, I want to do this. Why didn't you do that? Well, yeah, okay.
yeah.
You got me. Thank you.
Parents didn't say some. My parents discouraged me, and they wanted me to do this, and it's like
Yeah.
just as funneling into you have to do this. I want to ask you, um, what made you come to the United States? And what also, a two-part question, the difference between like living here, like doing business in England and coming here and all that, because I know you probably like, hey, there's difference in, especially in the way us Americans think. There's different states. Each state could be its own country, even though I don't see that. Some states are their own place. Like Florida's like Florida. That's Florida. West Virginia, West Virginia. But for the most part, Texas. Other than that, it's like some places aren't too different. But I know people come here and they're like, every state's different. I'm like, nah. You have your outliers. Texas is like, we're Texas. Fuck you. We don't care. And it's like, that's great for Texas. Florida's like, we're doing the fuck we want. It's like, all right. You know what I mean? It's just, but yeah, all this fun stuff.
I think there was a couple of reasons why I moved to the US. I mean, I love, for me personally, I'm a traveler.
Mm,
Early in my career, when I was in corporate, I used to travel around the world, visit multiple different countries. Even in the military, I operated in multiple different countries. So I got to travel, and I had a bug for traveling. For
yep.
me, all the way up until I moved to the US, I was never really bothered about having a home because I
Mm,
just wanted to be places. Wherever I woke up, that was my home.
well, nice.
And I could move from one country to another and not worry about it. I just enjoyed the freedom of being around, seeing different cultures, learning about different things about the world. And the other thing to remember is that the United Kingdom is an island, or two, actually multiple islands, but
That's
they're
right.
an island. So they have an island mentality. And you don't realize that until you leave and you get a different perspective.
Right.
And there's lots of biases you're brought up with, especially about other European countries, about the French, about the Germans,
Yeah.
etc., etc., Italians, the Spanish. We've been trying to kill each other for like over 2,000 years.
That's right. I mean, everybody, it's just like, here's the war, here's another war. England and France hit each other. There's like Germany hit it started. It's like I look back, I'm like, was there ever a time when y'all were like, just we're just gonna be at peace for like a couple years?
So this might blow your mind then. So if I let you know that France and England were constantly in war, the longest period they call it the 100-Year War. It's actually longer than 100 years. We've been fighting over more time, a continuous time that is,
Yeah.
than this country, the United States, has actually been officially a country.
Good God, are you serious?
So yeah, so for over 200, nearly 300 years, we were continuously at one war. And some people argue, well, the 100 War, when it stopped, yes, it started a few days later. So you
It's
can't
not,
say it stopped. We
it's
called
not,
it a different war,
we're
but
back at it. No wonder that makes no sense. No wonder like we had our rebellion here and we're all like, hey, France is like, you fight with them? I got you. Let's fuck you. Fuck them, yeah. That makes sense. So screwed up, man. History's funny. So you're right. Spain hates Portugal and they're a rival, and it was just like
well, Spain and
Russia.
England are constantly were fighting each other. You know, it's just that constant simulation going on. So there is a lot of biases, and
Mm,
the one thing that I think is different from the US, because US you really truly are technically isolated because you have Canada to the north,
yeah.
you have Mexico to the south, and then you have everyone else. Where
Yeah, we have this huge body of water on both sides where it's like, I mean, come at us. We will see you a mile away. Like, you
but
know.
with the UK, I mean, you're talking about, I think the narrowest point is just under 20 miles
Mm,
between us and France with the channel.
wow.
But, think of Belgium, poor Belgium. You know, Germany and France don't like each other. The French had this line up, and the Germans went, yeah, whatever, we'll go round it because you didn't put a defensive line along the Belgian border. So we go through Belgium down to get you. They've been fighting each other. If you look at Russia, a lot of people
God.
are not happy with Russia right now.
Mhm.
But the thing is, historically, ever since the Romans built a road all the way out towards Moscow, that road has been used to invade Russia. Napoleon did it, Hitler did it, and lots of other minor skirmishes in the middle of all of that.
Wow.
And so this is what's happened in Europe. We're constantly fighting each other over and over and over again for different things. Different factions rise up and fall. But yeah, so there's lots of biases there and lots of different rules and regulations and different characteristics of people. And
Yeah.
it's fun when you meet these different characteristics. Not
Right.
everyone's exactly the same in the characteristics, but
Yeah.
the general feeling you get from those, it's very, very astute. So that's the first big difference is that here, and not to belittle anything that happens here, a lot of things here are blown out of proportion because if I go back to Europe, you really want to see a grotto, some form of slum. I can show
Mm,
you plenty of those in Europe. And you'll be disgusted. Like, what? We don't even have them like that here.
mm,
Even some of the worst places
really?
uh, that you have in the US are nothing like the slums in some of the slums in Europe, where they ethnically section people off into different areas. What a lot of people don't
Wow.
realize is that there are walls. It was a wall in Northern Ireland that was built to keep the Protestants and Catholics apart in Belfast, and that was and people were forced out of their homes to
What?
create these walls. So that was in the late 60s, early 70s. That was done, and
Wow.
so there's lots of things that go on. And I mean, as a soldier, I got to see it first off. A young Catholic child of 3, 4 years old effing and blinding at you, calling you an effing B Brit. You
Wow.
know, really, they're born and driven that way for hatred for each other. And I think that was one of the things that I learned in the military is every conflict I went to, the issue really wasn't that there needed to be a war, is that each side just had this innate hatred for each other that they teach that in early age. And so the kids grow up in hatred.
Right. And that does that come from the prior generation, the prior generation, the prior, which is
Yes.
why they're constantly fighting because the they had it, they started, and then the other thing too is to make a point is that when these skirmishes happen, people think it's like it's clearly one side they're always fighting, but like there are people who are like, nah, I don't want to be involved, and they're just minding their own business, and then they're doing their thing, and then the other side comes over and like kills someone else. They go, what the fuck, and then they get pissed, and then they continue, so it spills over and just keeps going and going and going and going and going and going until
Yeah.
someone says, stop, this isn't doing anything. That's crazy. So it's just the kids are raised to hate on both sides, and they hate. Good God, oh man.
Yeah. So you start to get a picture of what's going on. I lived in Belgium for 9 years. Really interesting place to live. Lots of racism there, a ton of race. I when I moved here, I struggled because people say it's so racist here, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
What
You're
are you
like,
talking
no,
about?
that's not racism. That's real racism. Let me give you a story. Wow.
Yeah, and I remember talking to a HR leader once in one of my previous companies, and she tried to tell me about how racist it was, and privilege and all this other stuff. I said, I'll be honest. I mean, it may be because the area I'm in
Mm.
and the people I meet, and I meet people of all different background, all different gender, all different um, ethnic culture. I don't see it. There is some there,
Yeah.
and it's there in cracks and stuff. But I could tell you that I used to hear in the office at least once a day the N word when I was in Belgium,
Wow.
and not by a person of color either. Yeah, so
Wow.
that's just that one word. I used to hear other words that go on, and yes, there, it's it's it culturally there's a big difference between what goes on, and I know the US has made great steps forward.
Yeah.
It's not perfect. It's never going to be perfect.
Yep.
But when I compare it, and this is the problem sometimes if you don't have something to really compare it to
That's all you
and really
know.
truly compare it to,
Hmm.
it's hard to say whether you made there is progress. So there is progress here.
Yeah.
Not saying it's perfect, not saying it's
Yeah.
great for everyone, but the opportunities that are here in the US are far greater than there are in Europe.
Mm.
And that's part of the experience I have in coming to do. So part of the reason why I came here is because of that, the
Yeah.
opportunity to be able to grow a family life, uh, lots of things to do. You have to remember, if I leave my home right now and I drive 2 hours in any direction, I'll hit the coast, I'll hit North of Virginia, I hit South Carolina, and I'll be halfway to the mountains.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your jump off point. Yeah.
In Belgium, 2 hours from where I lived, I'd be in Amsterdam, so in Holland. I'd be in Cologne in Germany. Less than that, I'll be somewhere in Luxembourg, or I'll be on the outskirts of Paris. And that's a big difference to being here to being
Right.
in Europe. Is like 4 hours, I could be pretty much anywhere I wanted. 6 hours
Oh,
drive. You think of it, I drove to Orlando the other day, 9 hours, I think, total driving time. So about 10 hours, 11 hours to get down there,
yeah.
taking it steady. If I drove 11 hours, I'd be in like the bottom end of Italy or right down the bottom end of Spain or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
It's not that big. And you would see tons of different things, go through tons of different countries, tons of different exposure. But that's the thing I miss from Europe. What I don't miss from Europe are some of the other things, which is the constitution that you have here in the US is far more established and better than what we
Yep.
have what I had in Europe.
No,
I
you're
lived
right on
in,
that. Yeah.
yeah. So people are like, oh, it's so amazing to be in Belgium. Our tax rate in Belgium, 64%.
Holy shit.
Okay. Um, Belgium, Germany, police states.
Really?
When you move home, you go to the local police station and report you're moving home. You go to the local community and you apply to allow you to move home. And when you move, the police come and visit you to check that you moved in to see where you are. And they literally do it. So in Germany, you go to live in Germany, you go to the Stadthouse, which is basically the townhouse, and you go and register, and you show your passport, you show your birth certificate, and you say, I'm living here, and you show your proof of address. Yeah, I mean, here,
You mean you can't go in a country illegally and just show up? Oh, what is, I had no idea. I'm gonna go that direction, but whatever. Wow, but
yeah.
you really have to show, and then you show them, and then you go home, and they show up and go, "Hey, did you actually go?" That's too much.
It's
Wow.
crazy, isn't it? So yeah, you have to show your driving license, and they change your driving license. They take your driving license off you, give you a new one because now to your new address. But technically, they have the right to say no. You're not allowed to move into our district. But, so
Wow.
a lot more freedoms here, my friend.
I see it. Wow, because here it's like you can go to any community, any state, apply to residency, show whatever, and then you're in. You don't have to like. Wow, there's a
Yeah,
lot less restrictions and regulation. Okay, I
yeah,
got another question.
yeah.
What do you say to those people who it's propaganda here in the States, I swear, when people are like, we should be more like Denmark. Denmark work they work 4 days a week and they're happy, blah blah blah. Or we should be like Europe, like the whole arguments that I hear from one side of the political spectrum that argues about we should be more like Europe and they're more green and everything else. And I'm like, I don't think it works like that exactly. I want to talk to someone who's actually been there because if this place is so terrible, you wouldn't have people trying to come here, so they'd be like, I'll stay where I'm at. So like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I swear I'm like, it ain't like that. Europe's different, yes. There's some things that they're better at, but I feel like mostly it's like we still have it pretty good. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Like when you see stuff like that?
Yeah, so the first thing you need to do is financially look at the equivalency. It
Mm,
needs to be a financial equivalency.
yeah.
Cost of living, and cost of living is not just how much home, because homes here are not too well. California, they're stupid expensive.
Yeah, California and Hawaii, it's just
Yeah, if we put those to one side, but a lot of homes are reasonably priced to get into. Um, a lot of Europe, and this is the same with the UK, is after the Second World War, so much was destroyed. They
mm,
built a lot of government housing, and so everything is basically government housing built. So at first, and then other private people took over and started building some as well. So a lot of it is apartment blocks,
mm.
and so people here is like, what do you want? Even a townhome is an amazing size. I mean, I'm in a 3,000 square foot home here. When I moved from Belgium, we were just at 1,100 square feet,
Okay.
and the home cost more than it did here.
Wow.
So size for size, yes, everything's big. They always say everything's bigger in the US. Yes, you're correct. It's always big.
And especially in Texas.
Yeah, especially in Texas. So you have to look at cost of living. So what does it cost? Most people are paying rent. A lot of people don't get into home buying. They may buy an apartment. They may get into apartment buying. But again, you look at Germany. It takes many generations to live in the same home or live together,
Wow.
and then slowly move out and get their own apartment. But they're living in a one bed or a studio or a one bed apartment, and they slowly expand. Here, if you keep your nose clean and you work hard, within 2-3 years you can afford a down payment to buy a nice home,
Right.
a nice size home. And we're not talking about the condos.
Right.
And even the condos here are well developed. But the thing is, it's also how the building's done. A lot of homes over here are wooden, so it's cheaper to make. Most things in Europe are brick and concrete. And so that's a big difference. So that's the cost. Then there is healthcare. A lot of healthcare goes from NHS, which is technically free. No, it's not free. We'll come to that in a second.
Yeah, because I want to hear about it all the time. Like, it's really
Like in Belgium, what we had healthcare, but it was private. But the
right.
government, if you're unemployed or you're sick and you can't have a job, the government pays for your healthcare.
Right.
But remember what I said: Belgium 64% taxes. Okay,
Oh,
so you get that base thing and done. So think of Medicare. If you think if everyone just got Medicare,
mhm.
and you do it, okay. But we'll talk about how the hospitals bill in a moment, because that's really phenomenal. Let's go to the NHS. NHS, you pay your taxes. So depending on your tax rate and how much you earn, you'll pay from something like 20% all the way up to about 40%, 50%, depends if you're in really high bracket earning. That's your income tax. We have another thing called national insurance, which can be another 15 to 20% on top, or a bit more depending on what's going on. So there is a tax on top.
Right.
So people don't think of it as a tax, but it is actually a tax. It goes to pay towards the NHS.
Right.
Now, let's have a look. Recently, I was in a car accident last week. I went to the ER, or what we call casualty in the UK.
Okay.
And ER, I was straight in, seen, out, hardly anyone in there. Nurses, they had a couple of people to treat. If that was, I would have been there 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours, because it'd be busy. They're overflowing, and there's a lot of bed blocking going on and stuff like that. Now, let's say you have a medical and the doctor says, you know what, you got a problem with your gallbladder.
Mm-hmm.
We need to get you to a specialist. You could be waiting for your scan up to 6 months to get a scan to verify it, and then maybe 18 months to see a surgeon, and then maybe you'll get your surgery, unless it bursts on you and then you're in for emergency. So the waiting list in the UK, they have come down a bit, but you're talking about most people waiting 2 to 3 years on waiting lists to see good medical professionals.
Wait. They're waiting 2 years just to see the medical professional, not to get the operation, just to see the person.
Yes. I can see you thinking.
How how are people how are people not dying at alarming rates if they have something really bad and they're waiting 2 to 3 years? Can they still get private insurance, or is it just
Yes, you can get private
okay?
insurance.
Good. I was gonna say, like, that's a long time to wait, and like you said, the gallbladders. My girlfriend just had hers removed not too long ago, and I'm like, she would have been dead, and she had to wait that long.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
Oh, let's not be more like Europe. Let's just fix what we have here so it's not so.
let's go to Belgium, where it's that private basis piece. Now that's really good. So they're a lot more quicker, but they do bill, and they do everything, and they bill you for everything, and so your insurance covers it, and
Right.
that's why the basic medical is basic medical.
Yeah.
So think of it as economy class, second class, first class, premium class
Right.
going on an aircraft.
Mm.
Everyone gets economy class. So you're at the back, in the middle seat.
Right.
Okay, everyone gets that level. And then if your company offers you private insurance, which you can then top up, that may get you up to business class, somewhere between economy plus to business class. Depends how much you pay. And then if you pay premiums on top of that, then you get into first class. So that's the whole thing, is that you're paying not only 64% in taxes, you're paying all this extra in additional private insurance to complement what your company's already given you if you want even better treatment. Now, yes, you can go in, you get amazing service, it's all done properly. Do not have a car accident there, because if you're in the wrong, you're going to get billed for everyone. And
Oh,
they do everything.
wow.
I dislocated my thumb in Belgium, and they gave me a full head-to-toe CT scan just on a dislocated thumb, where an X-ray would have been suffice. But they decided that's what they want to do. But they'll go in, they'll do all these things, and it works. But you have a lot of people who get the economy class, which is just the minimum stuff to go through. Yeah, they get looked after, but that's the reason why taxes are higher.
Yeah. Oh man. Taxes are funny because no one wants to pay a lot in taxes, but then people want more things, and it's like, well, okay, that requires more money paid in taxes. Like, there seems to be no way around it. I feel like if it were done properly and efficiently and really like done genuinely, there are certain things people wouldn't pay. People would not mind paying more in taxes. If it was like, all right, if this is really giving me a service and efficient, I don't mind paying for it. Like here in the States, the firefighters, police, and ambulance, all stuff like firefighters and police, that's done to taxes. Like we need that. Like we're like, okay, I'll pay for that. But it's like people like we would be like, again, we should be more like Europe. We need to have national health care. I'm like, I don't think you understand that you're gonna pay way more, and if you don't see it as a tax, it still is. Like you're still paying for it in some form of fashion. And people don't get that, and that's where again, financial literacy comes in.
Yeah,
Economy, taxes, how it
it's
works.
understanding these things.
Yeah.
So let's bring it back to finance. So let's talk about finance. Okay, in Belgium, if you're an employee and you're given employee shares, you don't pay tax on the gain. You pay tax on the strike on the initial strike value. So what happens is you pay your taxes up front. So if let's say I gave you $20,000 worth of shares today,
Yeah.
depending on whether you sign to agree to keep them for 3 years or 9 years, I think 3 years, 3 years or 6 years, or 3 years or 9 years, something like that. You would either pay 18% tax or like 15% tax up front. Yeah, it's like, sorry, of that 90%, you paid nearly 50%. So let's say you said, I'm going to keep these shares for at least you have a strike term period of 4 years. So you can say, I'm going to keep them for at least 9 years before I sell them.
Right.
And they go, okay, so that is 12% of the thing. So that's 2,400 of that. You're going to pay $1,200 to us tax up front. Okay. The company goes nowhere. You don't sell it. You didn't make any money, but you're still out in that year. You got given them that $1,200. Now, work for a big tech company where they're giving you $100,000, and you decide you only want to keep them 3 years because you want to start selling them quickly to be able to pay towards your mortgage or something.
Yeah.
Okay. So now it's 20% of that. So that's $20,000. And so you're going to be owing them ten to $15,000 in taxes the moment you get given the stock.
Jesus. They get you.
Oh yeah, they get you.
Wow, wow, wow. Meanwhile, here it's like there's taxes to capital gains, but then you can take loans against it. Now it's good God. Wow. You know,
Crazy, yeah.
you know what, Robert? I wasn't gonna drink that much tonight, but thanks to you, I'll be drinking a lot tonight. I appreciate you. Like, holy shit, we have really good. That's insane, man. That's why I wanted to ask, because I just want to know the difference because I don't know any different than what we hear, what we have in states, and then I'm sure you've noticed this. Obviously, you've been here for enough time. How much we complain a
Mm-hmm.
lot about Jesus, everything. Especially now with everything being hyper political, it's like everything's. I'm like, guys, we have it pretty good. Oh yeah, I know, but I'm like, no, 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 we do. Go elsewhere. Talk to someone who's come here from another country, a communist country. So like they come here and they're like, you can do all this and you're just squandering it because we don't have that comparison. We've grown
Yeah.
up in it, and I appreciate it more because doing the entrepreneurial route, you lose money, you become broke and shit, and you go, well, I had a pretty good upbringing being in suburbs. I have a couch sleep on. Thank you. You know what I mean? Like you have to have that like comparison to be like, I have pretty good. I have my health. You know what I mean? And hearing you and other people talk about when they come from the country and how the workshop's there, and you come here and like and it makes sense. And for a while, I would always like I couldn't figure out like when people come from another country when they can't speak the language, they're broke, they don't have if they have money, it's like maybe $100, $200 if they're lucky. Like that's on their if they're lucky, and yet somehow they come here, they make it work, and then they have a family, they got homes and businesses. I'm like, how in the world do you do that? We're born here and we squander, we're broke, and then it makes sense because of one what they're taught about this country. Not what we're taught. We're taught it's wrong and evil if you're on one side of the political aisle. They're taught it's land opportunity. If you work hard, you make it work. Then two, they grow up in a place where the opportunities aren't as great or not as many. Then they come here and they're like, I can do what? Oh,
Yes.
and they just go at it. We aren't.
Yeah.
We're born into it, and then we're taught not to look for the opportunity. We're taught to look for it. Why everything's terrible, horrible, oppressive, and it's like we have it. We still. It's not perfect, like you said, but compared to the rest of the world, most countries, it's pretty damn good.
Hmm.
And we don't realize it. And it's like, oh, like this is, I've gotten older. I realized the United States living is not the norm.
No.
It's definitely not. It's super not. And I'm like, this is not the norm. Whoa, we are the unique place. And then also that I see articles every now and then people leave the United States and they live in the country and they're like, I'm never going back. I'm like, that's great. It's not for everybody though. There's a trade-off. You can go
Yeah.
to another country, and yeah, I will admit this: the food is healthier in Europe and stuff, but there's a trade-off that you're making for what you have here. I don't think people consider that. It's like there's a trade-off. You may not see it until something happens that you don't like, and then you want to speak up against it, and then you can't do that. You know?
Yeah. There are different cultures around, and some people like the different cultures. They want to try different things.
Yeah.
You'll see there's we watch these relocation programs sometimes where you see people wanting to buy a home in all these different countries, and it's like, yeah, we've lived there, we've done that, we know what that's like, and it's so funny watching people's faces when they're, what do you mean I can't? What do you mean I don't have a shower and a bath? Right, we don't have the room for those. What do you mean? The cooker is just a two ring thing,
Yeah, that's it.
and you don't have laundry in your apartment. The laundry is done in the cellar, in the basement. Like, yeah, because that's where they put all this plumbing down there. Because if there's any problems, it gets flooded in the basement and it doesn't go into someone else's apartment.
Right.
When you look at all these different things, it's just different ways of doing pieces. And just go to IKEA. And yeah, the IKEA in the US, it makes it a bit more spacious. But when you start to realize if you're just living on IKEA furniture,
Uh-huh.
you know you're in at least 4 times smaller apartment than what you're currently having right now. And that's what Europe is. It's just small homes
Yeah.
because they don't have much space. They have a lot of citizenship. A lot of things were built post Second World War because it all got destroyed
Yeah.
with either by the Allies or by the Germans, whichever country
Then you
was
have the
being
Cold
bombed.
War, where everyone was
Yeah,
like, "Well, we could all die tomorrow, so let's keep everything small. What's the point of
yeah.
going be huge and everything else?" Not America. America's like, "Fuck this. We're America. That's what we're going to do." And it's like,
We got loads of land. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
Let's do it
it
anyway.
does have lots of land.
Yeah.
But yeah, you see a lot more, and people talk about the community places. Here, you're used to driving everywhere. By the way, it's a big difference between Europe,
Yeah.
including the UK,
Driving here
and
is
here. Is
required.
here
Over
you have to
there,
drive everywhere.
yeah.
In the UK, you don't have to. I mean, most of the places you can walk, jump on a bus, or things are community based around these things. The
Okay.
US was more of a satellite type of a layout where you
Yeah.
have a central area, you go shopping, and everything. All the subdivisions are centralized out. Whereas in Belgium, we lived in villages and stuff like that, and we'd go to the local superstore. Yeah, we may drive to a local town now and then,
Other
but
than that,
ultimately you can be pretty much self-contained, and the school's there, everything's all there, and you don't need to do much.
See, I appreciate that. And here in the United States, we're trying to, I think there's a push now to get back to being having more things in the community
Yeah,
locally than making these massive like developments and homes and things. It's like make a more localized community because that's really how humans, for all of human history, have functioned in
yeah,
communities with people, relationships, not these big, huge. I mean, even when you have like these big cities, back in the history in the castles, like it's still a community, it's still walled off, and everyone's like talking, know what's going on. But at least here, not so much where I'm at, and if you are, but more so in Pennsylvania, you have the Amish. And
yes,
their food I trust because they don't use any chemicals. I'm like, at least if I have this butter or food, whatever, it's from this way nature intended it, and it's okay.
hmm
And I appreciate them for that. Other than that, that's a whole new thing. That's a whole new discussion, but that's interesting. Wow, like, yeah, because over there it's more localized and you can get around and here, unless you're in the major cities like DC, New York City, those places you don't really want a car unless you're like rich, you want to get around. You can get around just the subway and stuff and walk. But why out where I'm at, and the thing where you are like, you do need to have a car just to get some point A to point B, going to work. They are trying to make more public transportation, but it's not as where I'm from in Maryland in Montgomery County borders DC. So Montgomery County borders DC and PG County, and in that, and then you have Arlington County and all stuff. That little bubble has a great transportation, public transit with the metro that goes through and the
yeah,
buses and everything else. So it's there. There you can get away without a car for the most part until it's like, hey, come meet me in this place, and it's like, an Uber drive's gonna be very expensive,
yes.
very expensive at that point. But that is interesting. Oof, the taxes, the homes, the the insurance part. God, it seems like, especially right now with what we're dealing with here, with especially with the health CEO that got killed, and how America, like, we have our own problems with healthcare, and it needs to be changed. Because sometimes I'm like, we're paying all this money, and like, why are we not getting what we need? So it almost seems like, where's the happy medium? Because right now it's like, this is not the greatest. It's better than this. It's still got a lot of work. This is like, yeah, it's free, but you're gonna wait a long time. So it's like, where's the medium where it's like it's affordable, you get what you need and everything else. You're not having these lawsuits against these health insurance companies who can kill because the whole delay, deny, defend, all that. Well, let me ask you this. What's your thought process on that, especially with the healthcare system here, and you hear the constant, I'm sure you've seen the commercials where it's like the lawyers are always like, "Hey, were you denied a claim by a health insurance company? Don't worry, we'll help sue them for it." You know what I mean? Like, what are your thought process on that? I mean, I know the European model is its own thing, but here it's like there's a big deal on healthcare and how much money people are paying. They have the deductible and they're paying all this money, and it's like, why am I not getting what I need? And or if they do get it, the insurance company is only paying like, oh, so much, and then one of the big causes of bankruptcy here are medical bills, and that's people with
Yeah.
health insurance, and it's like, what? So that's our debacle. And then people are like, I hate it here. I'm like, well, it's just, I don't know.
So technically, yeah, that you can get caught with that in Europe. But
Hmm.
let's go back to meds. Let's
Yeah.
talk about medicines because this deny thing. People think it only happens in the US. It doesn't. It actually happens in Europe as well. So, for example, in the UK, your doctor has a budget, and it has there's a local budget as well for what medicines and stuff they can do, and depends on what patients they have, they get a budget to pay to cover some of the medicines that are done there. So in the UK, I think it's £17.50, so over $22 per prescription. Doesn't matter how much the script costs. So if your doctor prescribes you Tylenol and you don't buy it over the counter, you're going to be paying nearly $20, over $20 for Tylenol.
Yeah.
Okay, doesn't matter. Now the good thing is if you got a big cancer drug, you're only paying the same amount. The prescription fee is the same. Now here's the problem. Let's say you have a family member, and it's sort of based on one of my family members. They have a specific ailment and requires a new drug. And that drug, let's say it's $3,000 a month. The doctor may not even have the funds for you to have that.
Wow.
So you get denied. Yeah. So
Oh.
that you may not even be have access to a drug that could be life saving for you. You'd have to find funding for it somehow. And personally funding it is not commonly seen. So you have to go through private insurance or something to be able to get it. But yeah, if your local health authority, they have the big budget, and if they deem that no, we're not funding that drug, they're not funding that drug. And so that could be the one drug that saves your life. What they'd rather do is give you other drugs that are cheaper and less expensive that will sustain you for a little bit longer, but not the one that could actually cure you.
Wow. And then I guess here it's like, we'll give it to you. You're going to be billed a lot of money.
Yeah, we'll just bill it to you. Yeah, and I think that's that. Realistically, for me, the difference between the NHS and the health insurance here is that the costs are can be passed to the patient, whereas in the UK it doesn't get passed to the patient because there are caps on how much you're allowed you pay towards that. But that also means that you won't get the medicines, not necessarily all the medicines you need.
Mm. If I had to choose, that's a hard choice to make. You know
So,
what?
do you want to be bankrupted and alive,
Or dead.
or dead and ignorant?
It's like, you know what? At least with the bankruptcy, I can change it financially. So I'll take that. I'll take that route. It's at least I still get a chance to change my financial situation. Not the greatest thing.
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
uh,
It's crazy. It's crazy, 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 crazy. But yeah, it's a lot of people are like, oh, it's amazing over here. Like, you actually lived there? You actually been in that system? You been there?
propaganda. I swear. It's so much better there. I'm like, then have you lived there? Talked to someone? Have you talked to someone that's actually there and can tell you the truth? Not what
Yeah.
you see on Facebook or some post or whatever. Like, I don't know, man. I'm like, because I was under the false belief that like the whole was it Denmark was a socialist country and they're all happy until finally a guy that I know, John Stossel, talked about the truth about that, and their prime minister had to come out and say, "We're not a socialist country. That's a
They're not.
lie. We're
Yeah.
capitalists. They have some of it, but like it's a lie." But at one point they were, but they were poor, and the people, even the socialists hated it. They're like, "Nope," and they went back to being free enterprise country. And I'm like,
Norway, Sweden, the same.
wow.
Yeah. Money makes a difference.
Hmm.
And the whole thing is, no one wants the queues for food that you see in Russia. No one wants any of that. Everyone wants to be able to get their own food and stuff like that. But yeah, we cause our own problems, unfortunately, and that's probably about the best way to describe it. We just cause our own problems, and the more we cause our own problems, the more issues we have, and we just make things worse. And that's why there's always going to be people unhappy. You're never going to make everyone happy. Someone has to pay for it somewhere, and and you know, and as much as the government's supposed to work on behalf of the people, don't forget there's a ton of industry people who are going to go out and persuade and fund. I mean, I can't afford to give my local politician $1 million, but I know the local um, drug manufacturer can. And so, guess who's going to get listened to? Yeah, I may have
Okay.
voted for you to get in there, but this guy gave you the million. This company gave you $1 million. So, yeah, all these pressure groups, but they're everywhere. There are all sorts of campaigning groups all over the place that do things, whether advocacy for people or something else. But yeah, it's a little crazy. But financially, I think it's a little bit better here in the US than it is elsewhere.
There you have it, folks. straight
And by
from
the way, it's okay to be wealthy. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit of wealth.
yeah. There you have it, folks. Straight from a Brit's mouth. The truth about nationalized healthcare and everything else. We're having fun discussion. We went from business to this, but it all relates to how things are. So, Robert, it's been fun, man. I'm happy on again because we're not done. There's more of this conversation we can have as far as everything else goes. Um, Anything else you want to share? Parting knowledge or whatnot? Anything else like life lessons in business or healthcare? Belgian tax rates, everything.
Yeah, let's not scare people too much again. I think if you have an idea, a product or a service, don't hold back. Get out there. Go do it. Go bring it to the world. The world may not want it. That's a different conversation. But if you have this idea, don't hold back. Don't say it's. Don't let yourself talk yourself out of it. Don't let other people talk you out of it. Okay, because if you want to do it, you'll find a way of doing it, and it's okay. And you don't have to have a college degree. You don't have to have all these fancy letters after your name. You know, you can if you have a good business idea, good product or service you want to sell, and you're true to who you are, and that aligns with your client, your potential clientele, you will do well. Okay. And then when you start doing that, remember, you need people like me, you need people like Matt. It's okay to ask for help. There is nothing wrong with asking for help. Yes, you'll pay something towards our services, but you know what? The return value you get back is in the high multitudes.
Yep, I like it. Cool. Thanks for being on. And then one last question, Robert. How can people contact you, reach you?
Yeah, it's real straightforward. Robert at treeboradvisors.com. Trebor is Robert backwards, so it's TREBORADVISORS. So Robert at treeboradvisors.com, or if you go to treeboradvisors.com, my webpage, and on there you can book a call with me.
I like it. Awesome. Again, thank you for being on. This has been a good conversation, good episode. I learned a lot. The truth about Europe, what you know and what you don't know, everything else. Cool. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Matt. It's a pleasure talking to you today.